Hello, everyone. Welcome to day three's virtual lunch session with Nicole Eltom. My name is Alan Kudakun, and I am the Director of Experiences here at BRM Institute. So today we have the Vice President of Client Relations and Solutions Management at TELUS. And I am very, very excited to have Nicole Eltom join us for this Overcoming the Imposter Syndrome session. When I saw her storyteller proposal, I was like, yep, that is the one. We're definitely going to include her because I know I feel imposter syndrome on a regular basis, and I'm sure we all do out there in the BRM world, where we're always building relationships and we're learning something new, and looking at the 70% of the new attendees that are experiencing BRM Connect, something whenever we enter a new situation, it always is a little bit discomfort, and our insecurities always pop in. So very, very excited for you all to experience this session with Nicole. Unfortunately, Nicole had to get pulled into an emergency meeting. However, part of the disaster recovery plan of BRM Connect, we created a recording in advance. So we're going to be playing the recording. However, Nicole will be joining us for the live Q&A. So without further ado, here is Nicole Eltom and Overcoming the Imposter Syndrome.
Good afternoon. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm calling in from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional meeting grounds and gathering places of the traveling route for the diverse Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux people, where I have the opportunity to live with my family. We acknowledge that TELUS work spans many Indigenous territories and treaty areas. And for those attending the session today, I want to acknowledge the Indigenous territories and lands in which you are living and working from. Hello. So, do you ever go into one of those networking events, like a conference, say, like this one, and someone comes up for some small talk and they try to connect by saying, "Hi, my name is Jill. I work at," what do you do? By the very essence of that question, we almost always respond with our work labels and attributes. "Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Nicole. I am a VP at TELUS." Why do we do this? Who I am is more dimensional than my job title or where I work. For me, and for many of us, we feel like we need to put a label or a title or even a facade on at these events. Our work uniform is more than just a physical suit or a uniform that we wear, like a police officer, a nurse, or a bus driver. This is a personality of how we behave and how we think we need to portray ourselves. When we do that, other people don't get to see the human aspect of who we fully are. Over my career, I have really focused on and continue to focus on showing up authentically as myself, as an authentic leader, community member, mom, wife, sister, athlete, all aspects of my life. So let me fully introduce myself, or the labels that I identify with. I am a biracial woman. I am a mom. I'm a sister, a daughter, a friend, a community member, a volunteer, an athlete, a coworker, a peer, and a proud TELUS team member. I am a leader, which is so interesting to me that I was all of those things, maybe even an expert in some of them, but certainly not an imposter in them. Yet I don't say, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm a really good friend." I say, "Hi, I'm Nicole. I work as a people leader at TELUS." Now, don't get me wrong, work is an important dimension of who you are, yet often where our imposter syndrome most shows up and holds us back the most is at work. So let me reintroduce myself. Hi, my name is Nicole. I am a vulnerable and real human being who is passionate about creating connections, delivering value to others, and in every way I can, empowering others to live their best life. Creating value for me is my core ikigai, or my reason behind everything that I do. Today, I'm here to share with you what I have learned from my own experience in real life from other smart people and in my relationship with myself and hopefully I can create some good insights for you in the form of value as we discuss imposter syndrome. It's my version and it's my relationship with myself. Imposter syndrome is an internalized belief that you are only successful because of luck, not talent, intelligence, or hard work. So Maya Angelou, she is near and dear to my heart. I read about her at story time to my 6-year-old daughter quite frequently. She continues to inspire me as a woman who grew up in segregation where women and people of color, and especially women of color, were marginalized. Her story continues to show how she took the opportunity to show the world what a woman with multiple talents could do. She was an author, a poet, a playwright, a singer, a dancer, an actor, an activist, and she was even a trolley train conductor at one time. She truly gave voice to other women and to people of color, and she helped women understand that our own stories were important too. Did you know that she even wrote over 30 books? She had often received worldwide recognition for those books and poems she wrote. Yet Maya Angelou doubted herself. She questioned her abilities and was plagued by imposter syndrome. She once said publicly, although I've written all these books, every time I think I've run a game on somebody and they're gonna find me out. Did you know that she even wrote and read a poem on the pulse of the morning at Bill Clinton's first presidential inauguration in 1993? She was only the second poet in history and the first African American and first woman to read a poem at the presidential inauguration. The themes of her poem are change, inclusion, responsibility, and the role of a president and citizens for economic security. Let me quote, "Here, root yourself beside me. I am the tree planted by the river, which will not be moved." Here she was, a Black female poet, giving guidance to the white president and citizens of the United States back in the 90s. She did that. Amongst her own challenges with imposter syndrome, she did that. She's proof that women of all accomplishments and walks of life suffer from imposter syndrome and can overcome it. I personally do not write poetry, I don't write books, and I certainly do not speak to any country presidents yet anyways. I mean, I do speak to corporate ones, but today I'm going to share with you some of my own ways of dealing with and overcoming imposter syndrome. So, what is the clinical definition of imposter syndrome anyhow? The imposter phenomenon has been identified across genders, professions, and cultures. I am a biracial woman. I've even experienced imposter syndrome about the color of my skin. Sometimes I feel I am not white enough and I'm not Black enough to ever truly belong to either of my cultures. It's really quite silly, isn't it? It is estimated that 70% of people will experience at least one episode of imposter phenomenon in their lives. Imposter phenomenon consists of 3 core beliefs. Belief that he or she has fooled other people, aka I got lucky, they don't know the real me. Fear of being exposed as an imposter. And lastly, the inability to attribute your own success or achievements to internal ability, intelligence, or skill. Imposter syndrome can seem to be linked to stress symptoms, and they can include depression, burnout, anxiety, guilt, and shame about success, and as it leads to people not experiencing full happiness and taking pride in their own achievements. A book that I discovered about 5 years ago called The Big Leap by Stanford psychologist Gay Hendricks demonstrates on how to eliminate barriers to success by overcoming false fears and beliefs. While the book received mixed reviews, I truly enjoyed the concepts. I often reread this book today. A quote that really stuck from me from The Big Leap is, If I cling onto the notion that something is not possible, I'm arguing in favor of limitation. And if I argue for my limitations, then I get to keep them. For me, this totally explains how it's truly our mindset that is holding us back. So, in The Big Leap, the author talks about the upper limit problem. This is a mindset that holds us back, either because we think we are not deserving, afraid of leaving others behind, or because we don't want to outshine others. He goes on to say that if we overcome this, we jump into our zone of genius, where we will each enjoy much success across many areas of our life. But since we have this subconscious idea about how much happiness we're actually deserving of, we tend to ruin ourselves for no apparent reason. If things start going too well for us, Hendricks says this upper limit mindset will cause us to create fake drama and unnecessary problems and hold ourselves back from really reaching our true potential. Another interesting concept I found that really resonated with me is that this happens to people in all walks of life, right up to CEOs of Fortune 500 companies that he has coached. So this picture is me speaking at International Women's Day on March 6th, 2020, 10 days before the world shut down because of the global pandemic. I was afraid of public speaking, and I was very nervous and very anxious. On this day, I spoke about the concept of mental resilience. I told my own story of how I like to compete in triathlons and how I have a fear of open water swimming, and it was keeping me back. It was causing me a ton of anxiety, similar to my public speaking. So in the months prior, I started working with a sports psychologist on my fear of open water swimming. I actually didn't realize at that time that coaching would quickly translate into a mental strength for me professionally as well. So helping me use those techniques to quiet that negative voice or inner critic inside my head that really wants me to quit at races for the fear of jaws, which is ridiculous, showing up in the lake. So this helped me actually overcome my fear of public speaking. My fear of open water or public speaking was really a fear about not being good enough. So this support that the psychologist offered me and the techniques helped me to quiet that negative inner voice in my head, that inner critic that tells me my ideas are dumb, I am not smart enough, I'm not dressed well enough, and I certainly could not swim a shark in the lake. I mean, maybe that's true, but all in all, it's ridiculous. So I'm happy to say that I was confidently able to present here at International Women's Day. And as well, since then, I've spoken at other public events. And just in case you're wondering, I've also had quite a lot of improvements on the swimming front. So here are 3 of the tools I use to counteract those feelings of anxiety. Label it, reframe it, and face it. Observe your thoughts. How do they hinder you? Validate your own experience and identify the thoughts that hinder you that will create that unfounded anxiety. We're oftentimes given labels by others, so really think about how you describe or talk about others or yourself. Remember, this is a relationship with yourself, and the subconscious mind will often internalize those labels and words and take them as truth. So I really focused on shifting my focus to the actions or the journey of the goal rather than just the pure outcome. As we will tend to focus on only the negative or what is missed. So let me explain. So in 2019, I successfully trained for a half Ironman triathlon race. I've never completed more than a certain distance. And for those of you not familiar, half Ironman consists of a 1.9 kilometer swim, a 90 kilometer bike, and a 21.1 kilometer run, or a half marathon. For those of you in Imperial that don't know metric, that's a 70.3 mile race, back to back, all in one day. And that all has to be completed in under a time of 8.5 hours. So to put that into perspective, this is an endurance race that only about 10% of the planet do for sport. I trained daily for that race for 13 months. I hired a coach. I got up early every morning at 5 a.m. Sometimes it was minus 40 out, and I would go swimming at the pool before my family got up or my workday started. The race took me 8 hours and 2 minutes to complete. When I crossed the finish line, I quickly found out that I had missed the swim cutoff by 10 seconds. Technically, I was disqualified. I never received an official time. I even finished that race 27 minutes before the cutoff and ahead of many other people. I did as much as they did, if not more. I did all the things I needed to do to prepare for that race, yet I saw that as a failure. It took me a long time to reframe and reclaim that as a completion. And oh yeah, I still did get the t-shirt, the hat, and the medal. So another way that I have spoken about already is that I sought external coaching and I faced my anxiety and my fears. I did the work. There's no shame in seeking professional coaching like I did to overcome that fear and anxiety. And professional coaches come in many forms. They could be an athletic coach, a psychologist, a business coach, a mentor, or a friend. So let's talk about self-doubt. Here's me and my husband working from home with our daughter at the kitchen table during the pandemic. Okay, this was early on, so things were a little unknown and very chaotic at that time. The world was shut down, and I have to say, if I look back at this picture, every time I attended a meeting that day, I was wondering, am I portraying the image that I have in my mind of what somebody doing my type of work should look like? Can I really be a senior leader in a large global company if I am working like this? Do other senior leaders work from their kitchen table amongst this chaos of Play-Doh and games with their kids at home in their pajamas at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Please, no judging. Let's just be clear. This is not an everyday occurrence now. It happens far less now, but we are now further along in the pandemic. Kids' school and daycares and activities are back open. But back then, I truly had to reframe and consciously think through this thought and accept that we were in a pandemic and this is everybody's normal right now, and not judge myself. This was definitely my normal for many days, for many weeks, for many of us. But I struggled to convince myself that I can't really be a senior leader in a global company if this is how I'm working. So my self-doubt continues to show up because I work so hard to give an outward impression that I am competent, and internally I have these deep feelings that I lack knowledge or expertise. I don't have a university degree, I'm a woman of color, and I often wonder, do I really belong? When I receive a compliment, I deflect and I think, oh geez, they're being so nice. When I receive constructive feedback, I think, oh, see, they figured me out. I'm actually not that capable. When I win an award or receive recognition for my hard work, I think, oh, what luck. Or that everybody wins these types of accolades or awards. That is my comparison beef, feeding my imposter syndrome and stealing my joy. So when I think about it, here's how it may show up to other people. I continually ask, do you know what I mean at the end of a sentence when I'm explaining something? I feel like in this point, I'm undermining myself when I do that. I may come across as uncertain or lacking confidence. I've really truly become aware of this habit, and I am really focusing to remove that from my vocabulary. Another example is at TELUS, we have these annual award ceremonies celebrating the power of diversity by shining a spotlight on remarkable TELUS women and allies. Through the Chloe Awards, a coveted recognition is received. It is a coveted recognition to receive one of these annual awards. I was honored to be nominated and win 2 years in a row in 2 separate categories. However, when I received calls and messages afterwards from our senior leaders commending me that it is unheard of to win a Chloe Award 2 years in a row in 2 different categories. The self-doubt for me sounded like, awesome, that's great validation, Nicole, but don't other people do these things? Like, really? Do I really deserve these awards? Instead of focusing on the fact of what I had accomplished was truly extraordinary within our large global organization. So, 2 of the ways that I use to counter my self-doubt is I cultivate self-awareness. I try and quiet that inner critic and take time to note the times that she is the noisiest. I take time to reflect on my own strengths and allow myself to see myself in a different light. Writing things down and reviewing your success regularly reminds me what I've accomplished. It can change the inner talk track of that inner critic who is often contributing to holding me back and creating that self-doubt. You have to believe that you are capable. Recently, I was promoted into the role that I'm in today, and this was surely confirmation or recognition that I am a valued leader and respected at the leadership table. I've worked very hard through my 30+ year career to accomplish what I have today. When I was offered my current role, my inner critic shouted, "Hey, but you're not ready yet." It's really kind of ironic that somebody else recognized my own capabilities before I could. Once you change that talk track and start believing, your confidence will shift and that will start to show up positively in all aspects of your life. You need to recognize your areas of expertise and your strengths and remember what you do well. Review those achievements, think about your strengths, talk to your mentors, be proud of yourself. Do not downplay your accomplishments or deflect compliments. So let's think about how many of us strive for perfection. This shows up for me loudly in my training. I strive to make every single one of my workouts perfect, which is completely unattainable. Our self-worth is often intertwined with how much we accomplish, and our performance can play a big role in our sense of self. Here I am practicing a plank in my home gym after what looks like, I think, a run. Instead of being proud of, doing this plank and after a run, all I can see in this picture is the mess behind me, the laundry on the floor, the bikes and such. Really, what you don't know about this picture is that this is at the end of a 1 minute a day plank challenge that I took from a friend, and we did it every day for 6 months. What an accomplishment, right? I'd never done anything like that before. So the picture alone doesn't tell us that, but at times, that's what my inner critic sees in this picture. The laundry, the bikes, the mess, not the accomplishment of 6 months of planking. That's 600 minutes. Pretty amazing. In the past, my work has always had to be an A+, and my motto used to be, failure is not an option. Perfectionism isn't really about having high standards. Perfectionism is really truly about unrealistic expectations. So I'm grateful that I've matured, I've worked on this, and that I've learned to temper that. I still struggle with the fact that I should be doing more, and the comparison thief, yes again, plays a significant role here for me. Should I be working longer hours? Should I be doing more events? Should I take on that project? Should I take on that program? Here's a personal example. This past summer, we have completed a massive home renovation. And in the spring, when all my friends were out buying stuff for their garden, I got swept up and bought all the things to plant a vegetable garden again this year. It took conscious, real effort on my part not to take on that additional responsibility. I mean, what was I thinking about? We had to move out of our house, but yet I was thinking that I could still plant a garden at our house that needed to be watered and cared for every day. While I know that might seem insignificant, it was a really interesting self-awareness situation for me in my own journey. And this, I don't understand why we do this to ourselves. Take on more projects, take on more things when your plate is already so full. I'm happy to say, though, that I am fully aware of this behavior in my own life, and I did not plant a vegetable garden this summer. The inability to fully enjoy success. Remember those Chloe Awards that I won? I kept downplaying them and telling myself that wasn't a big deal when others commended me. This is also a sign of perfectionism. It can also show up as fear of failure, which I mentioned earlier can lead to burnout. So some ways that I've learned to counter the perfectionism is I've learned to give myself grace, and I've learned it's okay to make mistakes. I give up things now, like vegetable gardens, and I'm okay from time to time with a messy house. But I've spent a lot of time trying to rewrite my talk track and quieting that inner critic. It's one thing to strive to continually improve, but it's another thing to be obsessive about never making mistakes or having everything perfect. Again, I try to focus on efforts rather than outcomes. Remember back to my training and racing that half Ironman example? It's really about the 13 months of training that I did, not about the 10 seconds that I missed. I focused on stop comparing. They say that comparison is the thief of joy, and that comparison thief, it will definitely feed our imposter syndrome. We often compare things like work hours, volunteerism, programs, projects, social media, doing, not doing. Am I doing something wrong? Do I need to do more work? What are they doing? Maybe I'm doing it wrong. As newer parents, we do this all the time. And it's especially when the kids are younger, I found. How is my kid sleeping? Is he developing? Is she reading? Do they know their alphabet yet? How are their manners? We've got to learn to leave comparison at the door. Check it and leave it at the door. There's enough goodness and success in the world for everyone. The only person that you should ever compare yourself to is your previous self. Learn the art of moving on. So, most importantly, don't forget to celebrate your small wins. Your imposter syndrome and your inner critic may have you thinking that it's mostly luck that has gotten you here. That is not the case. Like I said earlier, your efforts have surely played a huge role in your success. Focus on your efforts and reward yourself for constantly learning and developing new talents. I went to the gym today. That's what's important, that I showed up and I went to the gym. It's not how long you held your plank. Celebrate those small milestones. So today, I have shared a few tactics on some ways that I deal with the feelings around imposter syndrome. You should understand that feeling incompetent or feeling imposter syndrome isn't actually being incompetent or being an imposter. Those are two completely different things. Once we start to recognize imposter syndrome in ourselves and create self-awareness, start to actively work to overcome it, it'll feel super uncomfortable and definitely take time. You have to redirect years of thought patterns and beliefs. It's super important to remember that this is a common experience and part of a human condition. No one can overcome this just overnight, but you will with time and practice. Do not discount your own personal experiences that may make this more challenging for you. Please be kind to yourself. Remember that some people are naturally better at some skills than others, just like you are naturally better at some things than other people. Try to sink into the fact that you don't have to know each and everything. Nobody's expecting it, and you shouldn't be expecting that of yourself either. What people expect is that you remain honest in your growth, in your efforts for growth, and continue with a growth mindset. So, why did I choose to talk about imposter syndrome today? It's because I'm passionate and I advocate for gender balance, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Women often won't apply for jobs until they're 100% qualified because of how we perceive ourselves. Now, I'm not saying men don't suffer from imposter syndrome in the same way that women do. I can only speak from my perspective as a woman. We can close that gender gap through hiring and promotions, especially early on in the pipeline when women are most overlooked. Being promoted from individual contributors to manager levels and from senior manager levels to VP levels Some of that is attributed to hiring practice, bias or unconscious bias, and some of it's attributed to the fact that we just hold ourselves back because of imposter syndrome. It tends to hurt our place and our spot in the workforce, and we need to be strong role models in order to drive forward that gender balance. So think about the massive change that you can bring for yourself by believing in yourself and combating your own imposter syndrome. I hope that by me sharing my perspective with you today, it will shift your thinking about how your imposter syndrome holds you back in your own advancement and how you can help elevate others to prevent her own imposter syndrome in holding her back. Thank you for letting me share my perspective today.
All right. Wow. That was so great, wasn't it? So to be honest, I've already seen this and was already rushing over making that recording for Nicole and was so excited for you all to see it. So it is my absolute pleasure to bring Nicole Eltom on to join us for the live Q&A. Let's see. Alrighty, let's bring her on to the screen here. Let's get rid of my graphic and yay, we could work. Okay, awesome. Alrighty, hi Nicole. So as you saw, attendees out there joining us virtually, I'm sure you saw that I was highlighting your comments, your amazing comments, and we normally haven't been doing that for every comment, but I knew that Nicole was in the back of the studio with me kind of watching, and I was like waiting to see if she would look up to see the first comment, and she looked up and I was like, okay, good. I'm just gonna keep doing this. So
it was amazing.
Yeah,
It was amazing. It
so
was
glad that you all
fun
were doing that.
Yeah, it was so fun to see the comments coming in and see folks reacting to the story. It took a lot of energy and really a lot of self-reflection to be able to create that presentation. I'm so happy that we were able to do that and to share it with you all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I shared with with the attendees at the very beginning before you joined that I was so happy to see this proposal come in, and then when Nicole and I met to create the recording, she was like, "Do people even want to hear this? I'm surprised that it even got picked," and I was like, "Ah, this is your imposter syndrome coming in."
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, we do have a couple of questions, and I did go ahead and post them in the chat already, but let me scroll up and find them. I know that I posted one, but let me find the one from Zoe that followed up.
Sure. I just want to give a shout out to Gavin. Thank you for being like my partner in the pre-pandemic work from home, kids at home thing, and glitter in your beard. And yes, that was a giant tub of Play-Doh. But in fact, it isn't. It's got like little containers of Play-Doh inside of it with a bunch of cutters and scissors and shape things and whatnot. So but yes, that was what my dining room table looked like for a number of weeks early on in the pandemic, and it was a little crazy for all of us, was it not?
So crazy. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I popped the question up here on the screen here, but Zoe asked, how do you quiet your inner voice? What tactics do you use?
Yeah, so there's a couple of tactics that I use to quiet the inner voice, and I've done this in the past, and I've just got back on it lately, where my imposter syndrome has been showing up again, and also I find it's really great for me on a daily basis to do that, and that is the morning routine. So I make sure I get up early. I make sure I set time aside to listen to something positive. So I don't listen to the news. I don't read my phone. I don't have screen time. I move my body, whatever that looks like for you. Mine might be a boot camp, a virtual boot camp, or running, or whatever, cycling. And then I always spend at least 2 minutes meditating. And so my thing is I found a song that I really like to listen to. It's got some really positive messages in it. and it talks about, it's called I Am Light. And it's by India Ari, if anybody wants to look it up. And it just has such an amazing, almost a meditative quality to it, reminding you of all the positivity that belongs inside of you. And so that helps me quiet my inner voice. And then I have actually written out recently a list of affirmations, and I read them every single morning. And you got to fake it till you make it. Like, I think that inner critic can be so loud unless we drown it out with positive messages. And so that is really my advice, is you've got to find something positive to drown out those negative messages that you're hearing in your head. That constant diatribe of I'm not this, I'm not that, or I don't have enough of this or that. The other piece that if you're not into meditating, is journaling and getting things out, and then counteracting your negative thoughts with positive thoughts. For running, for example, I used to say, "Oh, I'm such a slow runner." Well, by comparison to what, right? Like you're running, so therefore you are a runner, and therefore you're going faster than a whole bunch of other people that are not running, right? So just being able to counteract those negative thoughts with positive, or neutralize those thoughts, really really does help.
Yeah, that's so great. So thank you for sharing that song. I love India Ari. So we have a BRM Connect playlist. So Laura Pulowski, the coordinator of the experiences, is actually she added the song. And so we're going to drag it up to the top of the playlist. So
Oh,
if
awesome.
anyone wants to go listen to I Am Light by India Ari, the BRM Connect playlist is linked in the BRM Connect app. So you guys can go listen to that after this session.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So the next question here comes from Emily, and I'll go ahead and pop that onto the screen again. So I struggle with letting my work peers seeing me vulnerable because I'm afraid that they might hold it against me for future projects, jobs, etc. How do you overcome that?
Ooh, yeah. I think that's one that we all struggle with. And, even Alan, what we were talking about when we were recording this session, me recording this session, we got lots of great feedback, but I was like, who wants to hear about this, right?
Yeah.
Does this make sense? So there's a lot of my coworkers and team members that are on the session today. So that'll be the first time they've seen that. I try and act as a vulnerable leader. That is part of who I am, and so it is a real switch to flip. I think there's a difference between being vulnerable and being, oversharing or sharing too much information. And, I'll admit that there's times where get, very casual with my coworkers and my peers. And so you have to feel that out. And I don't think it's a switch. So I don't think for a lot of this stuff, this is a journey, right? To your comfort level of overcoming, becoming a vulnerable leader. Brene Brown has a whole ton of information on her website about vulnerability, and her Dare to Lead book is amazing for being a vulnerable leader. And even if you're not a people leader, we are informal leaders as BRMs in our organization. And so I would say go check out some of Brene's work. She's got some amazing research on leadership qualities. And when you approach somebody from a place of vulnerability, they actually will respond to you in a human way, rather than maybe put up a defense piece. So I think that will actually break that down for them. So that would be my recommendation. It is definitely a mind shift, though, for folks to, if vulnerability isn't your first natural way of approaching situations, then I would say, go do some research to see what resonates with you. Maybe take some of Brene's coaching and try and incorporate that into your style.
Yeah, I completely agree, Nicole. And I agree that I don't think it is a what's important is that we shouldn't overcome that vulnerability. We need to lean into that vulnerability.
Totally.
And it's more of a shift of perspective, actually, where we shouldn't be shaming ourselves for being vulnerable. It's almost we need to be shaming others for shaming our vulnerability.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's
And I mean, obviously we're not wanting to shame anybody, but I was even thinking
yes.
about that as we were playing the session. You actually don't overcoming is an interesting word, because I feel like imposter syndrome, for example, it ebbs and flows throughout your life. Like, I don't think anybody's like never going to feel like an imposter. Like, if you go back to that book I cited, The Big Leap, the work that Gay Hendricks did with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, he talks about that upper limit problem. And so, you get people in all walks of lives, all different levels in companies and organizations in different areas of their life, feeling like they have this upper limit problem where they just, they are only deserving of so much greatness. And that's where he talks about breaking into the zone of genius. And when you can actually like shed the comparison play, you can shed the, caring what other people really think of you. When you can shed some of that stuff, that's when you level up, right? Like, this is how we level up, and this is about how we elevate ourselves and others, right? So, yeah, I know we kind of deviated off the question there, but hopefully that answered the vulnerability piece. I'm a big proponent of vulnerable leadership and us showing up as ourselves at work, and not alternating, like I talked about, between personalities or personas, like I talked about at the beginning, right? Like, it's not my work Nicole and my home Nicole. And I think the pandemic has allowed us to really blend it and be the vulnerable person and human that we are.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
We have time for just a couple more questions, so go
sure.
ahead and drop them into the chat, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. The next one comes from Damaris, so I'll go and pop that onto the screen there. How about interacting with someone who has a dominant personality when that person is a key stakeholder, but at the same organizational level as yourself?
Yeah, I find that a very interesting question. So I tend to just let them have the floor. You know, I I am not going to compete for airspace with other people. If they have lots to say, then I think sometimes people just need to be heard, right? And it may not be about what we're talking about. It may be about something else that's going on in their lives, and maybe even being vulnerable in that situation, and at the end of their rant or soapbox or the conversation, you just say, and vulnerability can look like, hey, I'm just checking in with you, is everything okay? Like, I noticed you were pretty passionate about this topic. Is there something else that's going on? And just asking those open-ended questions, I think, will approach people in a more vulnerable way, and maybe make them more self-aware of how they're presenting in the organization, and you may help that person, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think one of the mantras that I always follow is, the path of least resistance. And sometimes that resistance in front of us is, our coworkers or our colleagues, and,
Yeah,
just being able to be a river and go around them, but, still taking them along that journey with you, and, you're
I
still
love
part of
that.
that same ecosystem. So, yeah. All right. So our last question, it looks like, is going to come from Ruth. And Ruth asks, there you go. Was it easier to fight the inner critic during the triathlon, or during an everyday meeting now? Yeah.
Neither is easy. Neither is easy. And let me tell you about the inner critic with my triathlon. So my husband is a very accomplished triathlete. And so the crew of people that he hangs out with, they're winning things and getting trophies and going to world championships. And I'm just along for the recreational ride, right? Like, I'm doing it to be fit and get the hat and the t-shirt and the beer at the end, right? Like I'm not doing it to go to Kona or, um, win my age category. Sure, that would be super awesome. But I think at 50, I'm probably, unless I stay in it to an older age category where there's a smaller field of contestants, I'm not going to be winning any age categories or anything like that. And so, for me, showing up at the triathlon, it's like, do I belong here? It took a lot, like I said, to reframe that conversation. I haven't been doing triathlon as long as I have been doing the business thing. And so I'm probably more practiced at calming the inner critic when it comes to business than when it comes to triathlon. And part of the challenge with triathlon is it's something I've never done before. And so I only took that up when I met my husband 10 years ago. I had done one like a long time ago, 20 years ago, and then that was it. And then I started doing it again when I met my husband. And it really pushes me mentally, not just physically, to do all the things, right? And to be able to be, you know, remind myself that I've got this toughness. I do hard things. That is one of my mantras is I can do hard things. And especially when I'm training, and I actually should probably use that. I should probably take that at the top of my monitor here at work. Um, but yes, it's been a very interesting journey. There was a lot of times in my head I was like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And so I would actually write in Sharpie before I got to a race, yes, you can, across my wrist. And I would look at that during the race and remind myself that yes, I can do this. I did the work, and yes, I can do this, right? And sometimes it's
Yeah.
just being firm with yourself in and changing those negative thoughts, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so, so much, Nicole,
Oh, this
for
was a ton
sharing
of
your
fun. Thank
story.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you attendees for showing all of the love. It's been so great
Yes.
reading your comments and knowing that you all resonate with this because truly, I think we all do have that inner critic and we have that imposter syndrome, and it definitely stems from that fear and anxiety and being in uncomfortable situations, but in that discomfort is where we find our growth. So
Uh,
it's okay, it's just a pattern. It comes with the territory. So don't succumb to your inner critic. Keep fighting. I can do it, right? Onto your wrist. Tattoo it even maybe if you need.
you can get that
But yeah,
conscious ink, which is like the
yeah,
removable tattoos. I actually have those as well. I have gratitude, and one was gratitude, and I think the other one was I can't remember. Yes, I can, or something like that. So you
yeah,
can get them,
exactly.
and they do work.
Yeah, that's great. So I just want to do one more thank you to all of the attendees who've been joining me and our amazing storytellers for these specifically for these lunch virtual sessions. They've been kind of my little passion project out of the conference because they specifically were dealing with, more of our interpersonal relationships with Maureen's session on Monday on social capital in a post-COVID world, Eric Bloom's session yesterday on influencing others, and then now today's session with Nicole kind of finishing off with the imposter syndrome. So I hope that you all have really found them to be useful. They are a little bit outside of the normal realm of the sessions that we have at BRMConnect about value and how to talk about talk with our business partners, but this is so integral too, you know as apparent from all of the comments. So thank you again, and thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Nicole. I'll go ahead and leave you with a final word before we sign off.
Thank you. It was great to be here. Like I said, I think it was Monday on the panel. It feels so good to be here. I feel a little bit sad that we're not in person, but I feel so grateful and blessed to be part of this community and to be able to join you all virtually this week. So have fun, stay safe, and continue on with the BRM, being BRM champions in out there in the world.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.